Hello, welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. It is day 17 of Vlogmas. Uh, Only 8 more days of these live streams at 2 p.m. Um, hey, Sandra, Aileen, I see y'all are here on this Sunday afternoon. Hey, Marcia. All right, y'all, we're not going to be here long. Oops. We're not going to be here long. We've been talking about travel, and yesterday we talked about, what are the places I would go if money was no object. Before that, we talked about like how do you travel with your pet, and today we're talking about how do we survive modern travel. Okay. Um, so before we jump into that, in case the YouTube algorithm has done what it is supposed to do and has brought this video to your feed, and I am new to you and my channel is new to you, I want to say hello and welcome. My name is Adelia Borchade, although most people know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I primarily travel solo from my home base here in Mexico City. And so those are things we talk about on this channel, my life abroad, my travel adventures and misadventures, and we also discuss the financial aspect of living a life like that. Because if you're like me and you want to get out of the US and you want to explore, you got to have some money to do that. So, those are all things we talk about on this channel. If that is of interest to you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you tell not Instagram, YouTube, that you want more content like this in your feed. Okay, y'all. So, um, hold on, my wrong notes came up. Um, I don't know if it was the pandemic or if it is just the inevitability of late stage capitalism, but traveling kind of sucks right now, which I find very disappointing. As I said, I am Picky Girl Travels the World. I am someone who loved just being at the airport. Like even if I had to go pick somebody up at the airport, like that was my happy place. I got excited. And now air travel is the thing that I hate most about traveling. So I don't precisely know why things have changed, but I don't like it. It has made the travel experience a whole lot less enjoyable for me. Feel free to let me know in the comments if your enjoyment of travel has changed in the last few years. So, like I said, we're going to talk about how can you survive this new environment of travel that we're dealing with in 2023 and 2024? I can share with you the thing that has made the biggest difference for me um, is only booking direct flights when at all possible. The last couple of years, particularly during the holiday season, the amount of canceled flights, delayed flights, uh, has just, I don't want to be stuck anywhere. I would rather be, if there's a problem with my flight, I am either stuck home here in Mexico City or I am in the destination trying to get back here. Like I can deal with that. What I don't want to happen is to be stuck in some random place in the middle because my flight was delayed and I couldn't make my connection, or they canceled my connecting flight because of weather or what have you. So, booking only direct flights, that's sort of my number one rule when it comes to travel. But of course, living here in Mexico City, I cannot fly direct everywhere, particularly there are places in Europe and in Africa that if I were in the US, I could probably fly directly to that I can't here. So I try to then limit the number of connections that I have to make. Again, trying to keep things simple in case something unforeseen happens. Which leads me to number two on my list. Assume the worst. Um, Assume that your biggest fear happens, they lose your luggage. That means don't pack your medication in your checked bag or anything you think you might need if the bag is lost or if the flight is delayed. Y'all remember those pictures on the internet showing thousands and thousands of bags that were just sitting there because the people's flights were delayed, the people's flights were canceled. Just imagine if you packed, like you're stuck at the airport or they're going to put you up at a hotel, but like you need your laptop charger, you need your medication, and it's in one of those thousands of bags somewhere. So assume the worst can happen. Make sure that in your carry-on or your personal item, you have basically, like if I got to sleep in this airport, make sure you have the things with you that would make that experience suck a little less. That also means not traveling the same date that you have an event. Back in October, I flew to Las Vegas to see Adele perform, and I could have saved a little bit of money had I flown in the same day as the concert. But I kept thinking to myself, what if something happens? What if this flight is delayed or something happens where my flight gets canceled? How upset am I going to be if I miss this Adele concert that I paid this ridiculous amount of money for tickets for? So I very much suggest that you not travel the same day of an event that you have or that you don't want to miss because again, assume that the worst could happen. um, and then the next one on my list is travel insurance. I have done a video on this channel, which I will link in the description, about, how does travel insurance really work? I also have a link in the description. I have an affiliate link to a travel insurance search engine. It is not one particular company. You can go there, you can put in the details of the kind of policy you are looking for, and they will give you various options. Like I said, it is an affiliate link. So that means I get a little money to help keep this channel running, but it does not cost you anything, anything extra. um, Travel insurance, and I say this in the other video, which I'm going to link, but I'm going to say this again here. I do not mean you're buying your ticket for Delta and they're like, hey, you want to get insurance on this ticket? Do not buy that. What is Delta's incentive to insure your purchase? Why would you buy insurance from the same person who could possibly cancel your flight? Like they don't have the incentive to actually pay that claim. They're going to find every kind of reason, every kind of loophole against that. Get your own independent travel policy. Um, Depending on where you are going, that might just be delayed luggage, interrupted trip. But if you are going internationally, particularly, you want to make sure that it includes emergency medical care and also includes emergency evacuation. Because I read somebody's post not too long ago, a family member was injured in another country and needed to come back to the United States. But because of the nature of their injury, they could not sit up. They needed to recline. And everybody was like, well, Okay, just book them a business class or a first class ticket. The airline is not going to allow them to fly because they're a medical risk. So how do you get back to the US? You need to be emergency evac, and that's going to cost somewhere between 20,000 and 50,000 USD. So you want to make sure if you are traveling international that you have a policy that does more than just cover, hey, my bag was delayed. You want to make sure that you anticipate other issues as well. Um, the next one on my list is to um, build delays, additional time into your budget. So, like I said, expect the worst to happen, but also build it into your budget. That might mean that you pay a little bit more to have refundable tickets, a refundable hotel room, just because, crazy things happen. If there is nothing that we've learned in the last few years, it is that. So there are times when, so you need to anticipate either I am going to pay more for this refundable ticket. And there are levels to refundability and different price points for that. Or you build in, like, okay, I'm going to go with this ticket that is not refundable, knowing that if something happens, I'm going to have to come out of pocket possibly. Hopefully, depending on the reason for the cancellation or the delay, hopefully it's something that your travel insurance policy can cover. Um, I want to backtrack a little bit to travel insurance because I know some of you are thinking, well, I got such and such credit card and it gives me travel coverage. I implore you to go into the terms and conditions. Hell, call up the credit card company and verify the kind of coverage that you have and what you have to do in order for that coverage to kick in, because some of them will only cover things for your trip that were purchased with that card. Some of them, depending on the typical kind of service, like you want to rent a car and you decide to get Turo and you decline the insurance on Turo thinking that your Amex is going to cover you. And Amex is like, absolutely not. We don't cover peer-to-peer rentals. We only cover traditional auto rental. So I implore you that if you are going to rely on insurance that is not an independent policy, that you personally, and you have to verify this for every trip because it may not work the same way depending on where you're going. How do we find travel medical insurance? There are a couple of ways you can do this. You could use my link that's in the description because that's one of the filters you can use on the site to say this is the kind of policy I am looking for. You can also simply Google travel medical because what you want is for them to pay bills, medical bills, if you are in another country. The most ideal would be a primary pay policy where they pay directly to the hospital, to the doctor. The vast majority of policies are not that. Having them do direct bill, that those policies tend to be a little bit more expensive, but uh, especially if you're going to a place where, you're engaging in activity that might result in an injury, or you've got some pre-existing things going on, it might be worth it to pay that extra. But that's how you can find it. Because a lot of hospitals do not take credit cards, and we have all heard the stories. There is a video on this channel where three different women share their experiences having medical emergencies in other countries beside the US, and they want the money before you leave. And a lot of them, they want that money in cash from you. So this is, again, why we absolutely need to be getting that policy. I saw a question here about world nomads. Is that a good insurance? Um, I personally use World Nomad insurance because I am a resident of a country that is not the United States. For whatever reason, it seems that most of the travel insurance companies, one of their requirements is that you be a resident of the United States. I am a resident of Mexico, therefore, I typically go with World Nomads because they will insure people who live in lots of different countries. I will add that I've never had to file a claim with them, so I cannot speak to what that process has been. Um, let's see. Um, okay, so we talked about building in delays into your budget. That also means like yes, if your flight gets canceled, the airline should probably provide you with a voucher for a meal, hotel, what have you. But we saw a lot of them, particularly American US airlines, don't follow through with that. So it makes sense to make sure you got a little extra cash, a little extra room on your credit card, like build that into what you could possibly spend on this trip so that you not sit at the airport trying to lick crumbs out of the bottom of your pocket. All right. Um, the other two things that I would mention to help this be survivable, particularly for the folks who are traveling outside of the US, because it seems that air travel is like the biggest. But if you're traveling outside the US, often you are thinking about like, okay, I fly to this city and then I fly to this other city. Again, because we deal with delays, whether they be administrative, whether they be caused by weather, mechanical issues, what have you, um, do not sleep on buses and trains in other countries and using those as a way to connect to other destinations. I spent a month in Europe at the beginning of 2020, and I went to 9 or 10 different countries, and several of those were by train and by bus, the Flixbus. It was great. It was a lot less of the hassle. I didn't have to deal with the hassle you often have when you have to go to the airport and do security and worry about your liquids and all of that. I had a much more comfortable seat. I had internet. My seat reclined significantly more. It was just a much more pleasurable experience. And a lot of times it is going to be, particularly if you go the bus route, it is probably going to be significantly cheaper than uh, airfare. And then just one other piece of advice, this idea of like, I gotta find the cheapest way to do this trip. I gotta find the cheapest hotel. I gotta find the cheapest flight. Um, Chasing cheap is likely gonna cost you in the end. That if something goes wrong on this trip, being cheap about how you booked this trip, how you planned it, is probably going to come back and bite you in the butt. Okay. All right. I see a couple of questions here. Um, there can be travel insurance policies that cover rental cars, but you will have to specifically look at the terms of coverage. Something else to consider when you are looking at travel insurance is the activities that you're going to be doing. Like if you're going to go bungee jumping, generally speaking, a regular travel insurance policy is not going to cover injuries that come from that because that's considered an extreme sport. Also, if you are taking equipment with you, you may want to get a rider or upgrade the policy to make sure it's covering, particularly those of you who are digital nomads. and that is your work computer, that is the camera you use, you might want to upgrade the insurance for that trip to cover those things, because don't assume. That's probably the biggest message here, is don't assume the level of coverage, the refundability. You got to ask those questions before you go. Yes. Those bag fees on low cost flights will always get you. Because again, you're looking at like, oh, this flight is only $12 and the bag is 95. Now, if you are team personal item and you can make that work, that's great. But I'm starting to agree with you, Jess. Cheap doesn't really exist anymore, but people are still like pursuing it with the same fervor they did before. And the world, I feel like it just doesn't work like that anymore. Okay, I think I saw one other question, or maybe yeah, I try, this is one of the reasons I try not to check a bag, but there are times when it is unavoidable. But I go with the mindset of, if I never see that bag again, do I have the things with me that I'm going to need? This is very stressful. When I was at the Cancun airport, the nonstop flight home was canceled. There was no Wi-Fi, internet in the airport, gate terminals, very stressful. This is why there are snacks in my bag. Because again, like I said, assume the worst can happen. Be prepared for anything. And I hate to even form my mouth to say that, because, like travel used to be such a enjoyable experience. And I am finding that it is less and less that these days. We're going to end with Maya's question here. What is a good amount of cash to have for medical emergencies? Um, I don't know how to answer that, because I don't particularly advise people to walk around with wads of cash on them, because that's how you get robbed. Um, but at the same time, I think it's important to be able to access cash if you need it. If you find out that, oh, this hospital doesn't take credit cards, that there is some cash in an account that you can access, probably like a cash management account with a Fidelity or a Charles Schwab or something like that. um, I think that's important. Or, you know, if you are here living fast and loose, having there being somebody you can call to get that money, because we see it all the time. Somebody's had an incident, they're in the hospital won't let them leave without paying, because I mean, do you blame the hospital? Somebody is going back to a foreign country and you're going to let them leave without paying the bill? What are the odds you're going to get paid after they leave? And so we often see people's family and friends then posting the GoFundMe. And so I'm saying, don't get caught out there like that. Have a plan in place before. And if you're thinking, this is too much, I don't want to do all that, travel at your own risk then. Because really and truly, to travel in today's world, you have to be that kind of prepared. All right, y'all, that's all we got today. I will see y'all again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. Like I said, I will link the video that I did specifically on travel insurance in the description. There are a couple of other travel videos that I also did, sharing tips and tricks, that are also linked below. Bye, guys.